get zero at the table, man, all kinds of shit breaks loose.
Pick me!
Zero's at the table, you gotta be careful. Tons of shit breaks loose, baby.
Greetings, humans, and welcome back. I'm Joey Pigtails, and I know, it's been a long time since I've posted a vlog. There are a lot of reasons behind this, but it sums up nicely with this statement. I just needed some time. I've said this before, but let me put it out there again. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you can't see, so be kind, and don't be a douche. I'll talk about this a little more later. This is episode number 14 of my poker journey titled, Call Me a NIT One More Time, where I'll go over a few of the more complicated hands from the last time I filmed in November, as well as going over a hand from a private game I played which seems to have caused quite a stir in my playgroup. After the hands, I'll be rambling about a few things, including a WSOP event with double board bomb pots, managing stress and the vlogging experience, as well as my recent experience at BestBet Jaksonville, playing a tournament, and then some 5-5 PLO. So stick around if you like that sort of thing. Alright, let's get into the hands. This first hand here has a little background. I've played a few hands and folded without hitting anything, so my initial $500 buy-in is down to about $400, and I'm already a bit tilted. I double straddle the button to $20, which ends up seeing 4 calls before the action player on my right pots it to $140. Almost every hand has been going down like this, so I say fuck it and jam for $395 total with 8 of diamonds, 7 of clubs, 5 of hearts, 3 hearts. Nit, you say? Call me a nit one more time. The player in seat 2 jams for a little less, and it's folded around to the initial 3-better who calls off. He says we're only going one time, and so it goes. With $12.75 between the main and side pots, the board runs out Ace 8 9 4 2 with 3 hearts, and my 5 high flush is good enough to take this pot down. Oh yeah. Before we get into the next one, I'd like to share 2 nuggets of wisdom about the hand. Number 1, don't try this. It's really dumb. It's a low expected value play where we are punting our money on the flop the majority of the time. To consider this, everyone needs to be much, much deeper. The second nugget of wisdom will come after we see the carnage, so check this out. In the next hand, there's a $10 straddle on my right, and I limp Ace-Ace-Jack-3 single suit with the intention of re-raising pre-flop. After 4 other people call, the straddler sadly just checks this option. With $60 in, the flop is 4-2-5 with 2 diamonds. I flopped a wheel and also have the nut flush blocker. When check 2, I should be good here most of the time, so I pot it hoping to get sets and non-nut flush draws to come along. One player calls before the small blind now repots it to $300 and has me covered. And this is where the wheels start turning. This re-raise is clearly the nut straight, as I have the nut flush blocker in my hand. The only question is whether or not this player has a hand with robust equities, such as 2 pair or a set plus the nut straight, or if it's a naked nutted hand. Given the line he took, it seems this player would be content taking it down, so they probably want draws to fold. If I called this bet, I'd still have about $650 behind to fire as a bluff if the nuts change on the turn and I am checked to. Lots of ifs here, I know, but fuck it. Let's take a line. I toss out the call. And the turn changes the nuts in 2 ways. It pairs the board and it brings in the flush. My opponent seems sort of annoyed at the card and checks rather quickly, so I give it a couple seconds and spring my bluff, which gets through. And this leads me to point number 2. Don't be results-oriented. Just because it worked doesn't mean it was the right play. It's still dumb. But when it works, it sure makes me feel like a genius. But don't do it. In the next hand, I'm on the button and look down at 9-8-6-4 with 9 high hearts. Under the gun, who is known as the Meat Man, opens to $20, and I call on the button, as does the big blind. With a flop of 9-6-2 rainbow, I flop top 2 pair with some backdoor draws on a board that shouldn't be hitting the pre-flop raiser very hard. So when he leads this flop for $60, I want to charge the hands he'd continue with, which should include a variety of ace-ace and king-king combos that may also have a pair or other equity here, so I raise it to $200. The small blind folds, and our villain calls our raise. With 460 in, the turn is the ace of hearts giving me a 9 high heart draw. This is a card that is going to hit our opponent's calling range really, really hard. So when my opponent checks to me, I elect to take the free equity and see a river card, which is the 4 of hearts. Now my made hand has improved in a rather disguised fashion. So when my opponent checks to me, I need to find a value size that he'll be willing to call with whatever he had on the flop. And after some thought, I settle on the same bet mentality that you'll hear Bart Hansen from Crush Life Poker reference. I fire $200, the same size I raised to on the flop. This is typically a bluffy looking size, so I'm hoping for a crying call, which I do get after our villain gives it some thought. He had flopped the same 2 pair, so I was lucky to win that one with the backdoor flush. This is the hand from the home game that has caused a bit of a stir. Villain is on the button and straddles to $10 with about 4K behind and covers. The blind's an under-the-gun call, and I overcall from late position with Jack, 5-5, 2 clubs, having started the hand with about 38.50. The button now raises to 60, and the 4 of us come along. With $300 in, the flop is 10-5-4 with 2 clubs, giving me middle set, an overpair, and a Jack-high flush draw. When checked to, I need to build a pot versus other draws, so I lead $200 into $300. Our villain on the button now makes some comments to the tune of, "Oh, Pigtails bet $200 into $300? Huh. What spot?" and proceeds to cut out a raise to $900. Let's talk about this story that's being told. There are 2 potential hands that this player would do this with, top set or the nut flush draw. Hell, he could have both. But the fact is, our hand has way too much equity, and we're both way too deep to consider folding right here. I hate being out of position in this spot, but it seems a call to evaluate this turn is in order, so I put in the call. And the turn is one of the most important cards in the deck, the Ace of Clubs. Now, remember just a second ago when we pegged our opponent's range on one of 2 things? Well, one of them just went out the window. While my hand is only currently number 3, if I'm reading the story right, my opponent is highly unlikely to have a better flush. I decide to check the turn with the intention of check-raise jamming the turn, and sadly my opponent checks back. And this check back is useful information, as it confirms the plot we were reading earlier. The river is the 7 of clubs, bringing a 4th club to the board, and now my mind shifts to value. How much can I get that set of 10s to call here on the river? With about 2,900 behind, I settle on 1,200 looking for that crying call. And to my amazement, our villain now jams, putting me all in. What the fuck? I took a couple of seconds as I went from being 100% certain that I was ahead, to now wondering if I read this story wrong. I come to the conclusion that I'm not going to ignore my reads in this spot and verbalize, well, I'm not folding now, and flick in my stack. Our villain announces a set of 10s, and I show my hand to take this $8,000 pot down. Call me a nit one more time. Storytelling in poker is a thing. Sometimes the stories are subtle and require us to remember past times these players have told similar stories, and sometimes these stories smack you in the face with the plot. Getting good at poker means learning to read these stories and act upon them in real time, which, as you all know, isn't easy. Like the next topic, which is the hard part of the vlog, the part that has kept me from hitting the record button dozens of times the past few months. Let's talk about my break from vlogging and my vacation from poker. So the last few months I've done a lot of reflection and introspection. I essentially had a breakdown, a mental overload if you will. It started with my lackluster performance last summer at the WSOP, and it snowballed into this massive buildup of stress that I failed to properly deal with. All of that built-up stress led me to make some questionable decisions and put myself into some vulnerable spots while not being anywhere near the best place I could be mentally. And when you make your living from playing a game that requires a steel-hardened mind to handle a constant barrage of mental warfare, well, bad things are going to happen. And if this was something I wanted to continue to do and be successful at, I needed to regain control of my mental health. Remember, there's always another game. We can always walk away and come back another time. Some of the ways I've taken back control of my mental health is properly dealing with my stress through taking my physical fitness more seriously, listening to my body and mind and ending sessions based upon those feelings, but more importantly, spending more time with people outside of the poker table. And another reason for falling off the vlogging path recently was that I wasn't enjoying the process, like any part of it at all. It felt like work. And for me, the poker life isn't about feeling like a workhorse. I like the freedom this life affords me, but I also know I have work to do to reach my goals. So there is this delicate balance I have to maintain here. Do you know what would help? A like, subscribe, a comment, and a share. Help me get monetized and continue to bring you all interesting content, and I'll focus on showing you both sides of the poker life, from the serious and sometimes hilarious sides of the felt to my personal experiences, including my struggles and successes. Help me get monetized and continue bringing you all interesting content, and I'll focus on showing you both sides of the poker life, from the serious and sometimes hilarious side of the felt to my personal experiences, including my struggles and successes. Future vlogs are going to have a lot more discussion about non-hand topics in a vlogcast type format, with both poker-related content like reflections on poker news, hand reviews, my trip review to BestBet Jaksonville this past Saturday, and other completely random things, like this little guy getting hit with a belt from my recent outing to midget wrestling with friends. I also got hit in the face with a piece of a wet floor sign, which we then got autographed and have displayed proudly in my game room. Life is really cool when you get out and enjoy it. So this past Saturday, I drove up to BestBet Jaksonville and played the $400, $100,000 guarantee no limit hold'em event. Between the two flights that day, I fired 5 bullets and ended up with nothing to show for it. I should have just jumped into the PLO cash games after losing the first bullet, but I ignored my instincts and kept firing. Most of you who know me know that I've played mostly PLO cash for the past 5-ish years, and that's a great segue to the next statement. I've never felt so out of place and out of touch with a game as when I sat for this No Limit Hold'em tournament. It was like sitting down to a 4-player game of Root while never having played anything beyond Monopoly or Clue and expecting to have a good time. At certain points I thought it was all coming back to me, but nope. I've definitely hit the point of knowing that before I play another No Limit Hold'em tournament, I need to get in the tank and study. And right now, I'm not sure I want to devote my bandwidth to that. After firing off my shots in the tournament, I finally decided to sit for some PLO after circling the games and scouting a little. Between the 1-2 with a $100 to $800 buy-in and the 5-5 with a $300 to $3,000 buy-in, I had options. And one of the absolute coolest things I saw as I scouted was that I didn't recognize a single player at these tables. Not one. Any game I sat in meant I'd be a complete unknown to everyone unless they recognized me from the vlog. The 1-2 games I saw were all really short-stacked, with most players sitting on $100 to $300, and occasionally a player sitting at or beyond the $800 buy-in cap. I only brought $3,500 in cash with me, and having punted $2K in tournament buy-ins, I needed to consider that making my money back at one of these tables was probably not realistic. And on a side note, that sounds like a good discussion topic for the future. The subjective and illogical mindset of being quote-unquote stuck and having to get it back. I've got thoughts on this mental battle for days, but I'll save that for another time. As I surveyed the 1-2 games, I could hear a lot of jovial banter coming from the 5-5 PLO games up on the balcony. I took a closer look to see that the must-move game had stacks smaller than I expected, with 3 or 4 players having sub 1K stacks, and something else caught my eye. There's an open seat. I got the floor's attention, snagged that open seat, and bought in for $500, proceeding to nervously wait to get dealt my first cash game hand in a few weeks. As I look at the first card and see an ace, I get my hopes up for a positive session. I'm not going to go into too many details on hands here, as I wasn't keeping track of the action due to prioritizing paying attention to the game, so forgive me there. And outside of one specific hand, most of these were really straightforward scenarios, so we'll leave them there. The one major hand involved me in the big blind, flopping a partial wrap with a 10-high flush draw on a king-high board in a 5-way pot, and seeing the flop check around. A 10 comes on the turn, and it's checked to a guy that bets $80 into $400. 2 guys call, and I call with a number 2 straight, 2 pair, and a 10 high flush draw. Then we see this guy who hasn't played many hands outside of 2 punts where he jammed with junk, now check raises nearly all in. It's folded to me, and the one question repeated in my head like 3 or 4 times was, why would you ever check raise the nuts in this spot on such a wet board after the flop was checked around? The line just doesn't make any sense. Like the previous 2 times I saw this guy do this, it just doesn't make any sense. So I shrug jammed, and he immediately winced and sat back in his chair. I got him, baby. He still had like $300 behind, but he still called off for some reason. I didn't get to see that his hand since he mucked, but the river was the worst possible card, pairing the king. But the 10 high straight was still good to take down this pot, so, storytelling, right, guys? All in all, I managed to recoup about $1,400 with my tournament punts, so let's call this one a win, right, guys? I want to commend BestBet Jaksonville. The property is really nice and offers a lot of space. It may seem weird to some of you, but one of the coolest things I liked about BestBet was that there were numerous restroom options within walking distance of everything. My normal room that I play in only has 1 restroom, and it's located a long walk away from the tables, which is really inconvenient. So, always these rooms, make sure you have plenty of restroom options. I didn't eat while I was out there, but I took note of a diverse menu, including a 24-hour breakfast menu and a sushi bar. And the food I saw coming from the kitchen to the tables looked and smelled really good, so I'm looking forward to trying something new next time I go. Overall, I liked BestBet's room and setup, and I'll be planning more PLO sessions up there in the future. The last major subject I wanted to cover is the first ever WSOP bracelet event featuring double board bomb pots. When I first heard of this event, I was thinking that every hand was a bomb pot, but now that the schedule is posted, we see this is a no-limit hold'em and pot limit Omaha round and round event where the first hand of each round is a bomb pot. I'm probably not going to Vegas this summer, but if I do, this event will be on my radar. I have, in the meantime, asked the floors at BestBet, Orange City, and Daytona about running these kinds of events, and so far I'm not really getting a positive vibe from them. So if you play in either of these rooms and want to see them run one of these events, make sure to mention it to the floors and ask for it. Thank you all for tuning in and supporting my journey. I hope you all like the changes I'm making with the vlog, and I look forward to getting back on track with regular poker sessions soon. Also, I'll probably be filming at Orange City again in the next couple of days, so stop by if you want to be on the next vlog. I'm Joey Pigtails, and I am transparent, reminding you to be a good human. Bye!